Hi, I'm Guido Lanza, and we're joining you live from the Flagship Studios at JPM. My role is I'm the head of integrated research at Valo Health, where I have the pleasure of leading our Logica, which is our transformative small molecule offering, made possible through our strategic collaboration with Charles River Labs. Background-wise, I've 20 years doing at the crossroads of machine learning and drug discovery. And I'm here with Julie Frierson, whose vision for how to digitally transform CRL has really, and partnership with us has really made Logica possible. And with Luisa Salter-Cid, who's the Chief Scientific Officer of Pioneering Medicines, and who we're very excited to say today is a new Logica partner. So thank you very much for joining us. I'm going to kick us off by giving a little background on Logica, and then we'll give Julie and Luisa an opportunity to answer some questions about Logica as well as the broader drug discovery landscape. But maybe briefly, if you would like to introduce yourselves to kick us off.
Of course, yeah. So I'm Julie Frierson. I'm the Chief Scientific Officer of Charles River Labs. I have 20 plus years experience in small molecule drug discovery. And yeah, I worked hard to make sure that Logica became a reality, and I look forward to telling you more about it through the course of the session.
Great.
Hi, thank you for having us. Luisa Salter-Cid. So I'm an immunologist by training, and just like Judy, have over 20 years of experience both in pharma and small biotech, looking at both small molecules as well as biologics and other modalities. And my role at Pioneering Medicines and Flagship is really been to work with different companies and really bringing new modalities as well as more traditional ones in the path of drug discovery. So,
great, thank you. So, today starting off to say a few words about Logica. Logica is a new combined offering from Charles River and Valo to really rethink the process of going from a target to a candidate, and in many ways mirroring what has happened in the large molecule space over the past decade or so, where really the process has become far more predictable in terms of the cost and the expected success rate. And the goal here is to bring that kind of transformation really to the small molecule world, where traditionally the error bars have been higher and the costs have been far less predictable. Luisa, Pioneering Medicines is uniquely positioned, right, to deliver value across the scientific ecosystem. Can you talk a little bit about the model and frankly the role that Logica plays in your view in this?
Absolutely. So, as you mentioned, Pioneering Medicine was created by Flagship to be able to work with the different companies in the ecosystem, leverage their capabilities, their novel modalities, their novel perspectives in drug discovery, and then work with them and really turn those ideas and turn some of those projects into drugs. So what we bring from Pioneering Medicine is very experienced team in drug development and drug discovery, and so really we can then facilitate both with internal programs as well as external collaborations, and we have several with foundations, big pharma and so forth, and we really can leverage these different modalities, these different companies, and even if it is normal modalities, just like here, small molecule biologics, but a very unique way of really identifying best-in-class and first-in-class molecules. And then we provide a lot of the pharmacology and other support, translational and other support to really go into the path of drug discovery. So it's been super exciting for me.
That's great. And in your view, kind of, how does Logica fit into that picture, I guess?
Oh, it's as we were discussing before, it's like, why haven't people thought about this before? It does really look like an amazing idea because we can leverage, obviously, Valo's capabilities on in silico identification and optimization of, in this case, small molecules. And one of the things we really found fascinating when we talked to Valo was the ability to not just identify new molecules and and a lot of times we focus on potency and selectivity, but you guys can also identify then DMPK and other properties that really can make those molecules in the path of drugs, right? But what we at PM and a lot of smaller companies sometimes struggle then is how can we characterize these molecules well, right? A lot of times, either because of time or because of budget, we have to cut some corners, which eventually, especially on the small molecule side, always catch up with you at some point. And so this is the opportunity to really leverage Charles River extensive capabilities across all steps of drug discovery, in vitro, obviously in vivo pharmacology, toxicology, DMPK, and others, and even regulated activities, and really optimized for the best candidate. And so it's the best of both worlds, where you have the innovation of biotech and the ability to do then extensive characterization and come up with the best molecules. So yeah, like totally excited about that.
Sure. Yeah, no, I think I agree with you. I think for most AI companies, right, which I would say we went through maybe three phases of AI companies, right? I sell you some software, I sell you some insights, and that's great, and everybody's competing on how good are your algorithms, right? And now it really has become, about integration and about the value not of the insights but the application of the insights. And I think, for us, like the really exciting piece was the marriage of that, the data generation capabilities, but frankly the breadth and depth of the data generation capabilities, for the data that is the hardest to get, right? The data that is related to attrition across modalities, across therapeutic areas, really things that how do you model those things that kill you in year 4, right? Early, and really that's what we're striving for, right? Is exactly to really think about
especially
attrition.
Small molecule is so important, right?
Yeah.
Biologics, you get a little bit more leeway, but small molecule is all about optimization.
And Julie, as you were leading and are still leading this sort of digital transformation of Charles River, just broadly and then specifically with Logica, what role does, in your view, AI play in that?
Yeah, so Charles River about a year ago actually made a public commitment to take a year out of industry timelines for discovery and development. And there are many ways we're attempting to do that, but we really believe the Logica platform is going to significantly contribute to that. So our view is that, by incorporating AI into the breadth of capabilities we already have at Charles River, including the data generation element, which is at scale, as you pointed out, Guido, that really enables us to test beyond the limits of traditional wet assays and really explore vast areas of chemical space. And our view is that if you can do those two things together, you're inevitably going to reduce cycle times, you're inevitably going to improve decision making, and you are constantly de-risking your molecules, even from essentially day one.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that I think is really important about the two organizations coming together is we actually both have to adjust how we do drug discovery workflow to make the most of the AI combined with the wet science capabilities. So I think what you'll see from the combination of the two organizations is a truly transformed workflow. We'll be doing small molecule drug discovery tangibly differently to the way it's been done for the last 20 to 30 years. Learning from all of the experience both companies have got. There's decades of experience in Valo, there's decades of experience in Charles River. So I think it's a real powerhouse combination concept. I think we are particularly excited about the possibility of increasing the optionality of small molecule programs. So we work with a lot of biotechs. We often find chemical matter for them, and then they go off and they pursue their primary series, and very often they don't have a lot in backup space. I think our approach here, there's going to be a natural reserve of backup chemical matter all the way through the process. So when you do hit that inevitable hurdle or challenge, or that series looked good a couple of months ago, but now we've got some killer property that's just hit us, it's not a restart, right? It's a go back, look at the data we've already got, look at all of the chemical matter we've accumulated through data gen for modeling, data gen for hit finding, and I think we'll be pulling on reserves and getting back on track very quickly. So I think time and optionality are the big wins for us as far as adding AI into our integrated drug discovery capabilities.
In a sense, right, AI is about sort of cheating and peeking into the future.
Yep.
What are the things that are there? And then your starting point is not, I mean, in many ways, right, the client experience traditionally, right, is I start a project, I get a spreadsheet,
Yep.
and the spreadsheet has a bunch of compounds, and that sort of encodes my future, right?
Yeah.
Whatever my medicinal chemist likes, right? And I think that the fact that we're integrating the predictive models, right, in there means when you're going back to start in many ways, right, you're going back to the model.
Yeah.
And then you can apply that model not just to pick the next thing down the list of your screen, but across the entire universe of chemistries, right? And I mean, from my when we started building these algorithms, you know, Merck had 5 million or so compounds in their screening library. They were untouchable, right?
Yeah.
It was like, how can you ever compete with such a big library? And today we have probably 100,000 times that space accessible in a month.
Yeah.
And so, you know, just using the same paradigm of I'm going to pick my favorite million and screen them and then go forward, it clearly requires a rethink, right?
Yeah.
So I think a lot of the innovation is on the process side more than on the, you know, individual specific algorithm side that's really going on. So yeah, I couldn't agree more. Louisa, what, in a sense, can you say a little bit more about the partnership and kind of how you plan to leverage Logica? It sounds like, you know, we covered some of the things, some of the reasons we did it in the first place, but, you know, what are we going to do together, I guess is the...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we've been waiting for this to happen. So as we put together the contracts and things like that. So we have a few programs already that we've really been trying to do. But to your point, I mean, we would be, because they are at this moment mostly focused on best in class. There is one program that is first in class, really to the point that you made, which is we want to have optionality, right? We some of these, again, especially when you look for a best in class and you get a best in class in a target class that it's complicated. You really want that optionality of having different chemotypes, of having different molecules that you can pursue. And so we really have been waiting for that because, and to your point as well, in different therapeutic areas, that's something that Pioneering does. We focus on different therapeutic areas, and so also leveraging some of the translational databases that you guys have, and then again, to your point, the opportunity to do things in parallel, because again, with best in class, one of the things is also important is timing, right?
Yeah.
So we want to move at a good speed, and so yes, so at this moment we have identified already 2 different programs that are ready to go, and one that we're still negotiating a few things. These are programs that a couple of them came from initial internal explorations, because there's also some way that PM does create and generate new targets and new programs is through internal explorations. But 1 to 2 of the other ones are actually programs that we leverage through interactions with other flagship companies. So as you see, then there is like, you know, really that road where you collaborate with a company, you have some ideas on some target IDs, and then now we want to leverage with you guys. So we have both first in class and best in class, and it opened for us really the small molecule space, which is such an important space. But as you mentioned before, it's not only hard, but you want to be kind of innovative on it too, and that's where the AI and then the characterization can help us.
That makes a lot of sense, and in many ways, you know, what we're trying to do, right, is we already have a very complex process, right? All the things that we could do in a preclinical program, the levels of validation, when do I do what validation, right? And Charles River covers, you know, all of those on the map of those, right? And really, a lot of what I think we're trying to do is I would say to simplify that journey in many ways, right? And so if we think about maybe the two moments of clear value inflection in a program. They are, do I have a lead series that I can test the biology, go off and patent, et cetera? And then am I done changing atoms, right? Do I have my development candidate? And you know, and that's where we started talking and designing really the Logica offering. And I think from a client perspective, right, the simplified offering is allows us to focus on, I would say, a different kind of fully managed offering, right? Which is, we interact a lot, but the real handoff points are very clear. Yep. It also, I think, a lot of what that's done is allowed us to rethink the business model of Logica, right? Yep. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But in many ways, the advantage comes from the fact that now we can step back and say, okay, if I don't have to share for sure the spreadsheet at the end of an HTS, and I want to go from the first value generation point, which is really target ID, to that lead series, what are all the things that I can optimize there? Yep. And certainly from a quality perspective, AI plays a big role, but a lot of it is about eliminating white space, about really optimizing the intentionality of the information you're generating, mm-hmm. right? Because it's not just that we want to give you a report, right? It's that we really want to move the needle on the program, and exactly. I think that it's sort of the optimization of the processes between those points, mm-hmm. and how we can jump around and collect data later. Maybe for something you wouldn't typically collect data for, maybe it's some PK property, because we know that the series we have is most sensitive, right? And I think that's really maybe from a customer perspective, right? We're trying to focus on the advanceability and the quality of that first deliverable, right? And certainly, in a traditional sense, if Charles River's delivering a series, you get your compounds and you get your empirical advanceability, right? Yeah. What's my tier 1 ADME? What's my selectivity? What's my activity? Maybe some orthogonal assay, mm-hmm. right? But what I think what this does then is from a how robust is my series perspective as I go forward, all the things that Julie was mentioning, right, about the things that are going to inevitably derail you in LO, how stable am I going to be to those, right? Yeah. And so and this is where AI lets you look at 1 million analogs, mm-hmm. and then know which series is going to be the most advanceable, right? And I think that's the minimum bar is the traditional data package, and then really the I would say the real increase in value is being able to bring that to the table, and in many ways, because we're anchored there, right, we can have these models that are much more driven on the success, much better aligned maybe with the value drivers for the customer. Yep. So Julie, in your mind, given sort of this hierarchy that at the end integrates down to the business model, as I would argue maybe the key innovation of mm-hmm. this offering, mm-hmm. right? What types of clients do you think are the best fit, or how does the offering sort of change between the clients that you're? So
I think Logic has multiple distinct value propositions that appeal to different segments to different degrees, right? I think everybody loves the business model. Certainly to date, that's sort of the key sort of common piece of feedback, regardless of whether you're large pharma mm-hmm. or biotech. So people appreciate the fact that we've got confidence in the platform, and we're prepared to put a little bit of skin in the game and take a little bit of risk on the back end success. I think everybody sort of takes a lot of confidence from that. I would say that for our biotech partners, we emphasize the sort of acceleration piece. Everybody's in a race, right? And the risk share element. I think those two things are really important to our biotech partners. And I think then the payments that they need to make on success can be aligned to their funding milestones. So we can be flexible. Yeah. And I think that helps that group of organizations enormously, right? Mm-hmm. Then you're a true partner with them, right? You're trying to get them to the next inflection point. For large pharma, I think all of that still applies. Of course, they like the business model and the confidence that we're putting in the platform. Everybody's in a race ultimately, so speed is also important for them. But I also think that large pharma would appreciate the sort of comprehensive approach we're taking to mm-hmm. targets. Yeah. So this sort of multiple shots on goal concept, that's what they do, and that's what they would expect us to do. So we're deploying, as you know, in silico, screening possibilities, we're deploying DEL, we're deploying HTS, all at the beginning of a program, because we're really trying to embrace as much chemical matter as we possibly can, both for sort of anchoring to from a hit perspective, but also for that all-important development of models. So I think there's a lot of credibility comes our way from large pharma when they see the comprehensive approach we're taking. I would also say that, you know, the Charles River piece of this is important to large pharma because they know that we know what a development candidate looks like.
Yeah.
Right? You know, we all see different versions of development candidates depending on who we're engaging with and talking to. But Charles River really understands what that means. And I think so they expect when we say we're going to deliver a development candidate at the end, that's what they're going to get. And it will be up to large pharma standards.
Yep.
So I think this, you know, just to circle back, lots of value propositions. And I don't think this is a selective offering at all. I think this should appeal to anyone doing small molecule discovery.
Yeah. No, that's right. And I think the point you make about knowing what the development candidate is, I think, is actually maybe the meta point is that there's an interface point with you know, larger, but not just larger. You know, if you're a company creator all the way to where a lot of the challenges, right, have been around. At least having been in this for 20 years, have been around. You know, how do you convince a group to buy AI? Right.
Yeah.
It's very, very hard because you know your AI better than anybody else. Even if they have experts, at some level, they're taking a leap of faith.
Yeah.
And it's a risk. You're essentially asking these organizations to take a risk that they can't really quantify, right? And I think when you say, you know, we have this interface and we have this reputation around the DC. What's implicit in what I think is probably being received by the market is Charles River is taking the AI risk.
Yeah.
And the benefit to the customer is predictability, and the cost is lower and the time is lower, sure, but and that helps, right? But it's the fact that you're going to pay for success, and you know, and if Charles Rivers, and if we happen to pick a target where the AI doesn't see it, and that you know infrequently does happen, but you know, very, very infrequently, you know, we will brute force our way to the answer.
Standard mechanics are still there, right?
Exactly. And I think that changes from a convince me about your AI to a I'm intellectually curious about the chemistry in the AI, which is you know, which lowers frankly the barrier of being able to deploy, you know, and I would say get the benefits of the work that's gone on over the past many years, especially in this chemistry.
That's right.
space.
That's right. I mean, and just to sort of end that piece, I think what I would hope our clients would see when we talk to them about Logica is the fact that at the end of the day, I think they recognize the sort of credibility of Valo, they recognize the credibility in Charles River, and they know that Logica platform will deliver the candidate as long as it's chemically and biologically feasible. They will deliver the candidate. Sure. It's really then just about a matter of the toolkit that gets us there, right? And that's the bit that's our judgment call.
And maybe taking even popping up, Louise, on the AI side, right? You have this broad view of the Flagship ecosystem and just in general of the biotech and drug discovery community. What role do you see AI playing in the companies that you're working with, or that you see? How are people deploying it even beyond the sort of small molecule logic?
Oh yeah, to your point, it's across many companies and across many aspects. So some AI companies are more focused on the biology, right? And you know, looking, for instance, the convoluting cellular pathways, identifying new proteins through the dark genome, you know, things like that. So definitely there is the biology-focused companies, and then there's the more modality-focused companies. Obviously, Valo is one of them. We have some that are more focused on unique antibody generation, epitopes, bringing different constructs of antibodies by leveraging, again, ADC as well as bispecifics and even trispecifics. So we have both the modality focus and the biology focused, and I think they all bring aspects that are unique. To your point, each algorithm is different, so whether it's internally as well as externally through collaborators, you have to kind of prove your pudding. You have to decide, you have to show that you are able to deliver unique targets or unique approaches. But we have several ones that are quite successful at that. So yeah, I think AI brings tools across the drug discovery. To your point, Julie, and yours, at some point, you have to test that, right? Yeah. At some point, you have to really translate those ideas into drugs. And that is still done more or less through a traditional process, right? And that's one of the things that I like Valo is also because in Logica is really the access to like multiple types of libraries. So you talked about DNA encoded library and others. That in the past may or may not have been as successful, but now through AI and through, again, the optionality and the quicker testing, you can really interrogate that. So I think AI is there to stay and is important. It's very important for translational, for identifying patients, for, again, validating targets. I think we need to use it more as for target validation than we've done in the past. Yeah. But at the end of the day, you have to have the experimental data, and obviously companies know that. And that's why the faster you can do that and go back to the AI algorithm, because, again, AI companies also need feedback from the experimental side, yeah. Right? It's an optimization process, yeah. And that's why bringing the two together is so important. Mm-hmm.
No, that's a good, yeah, and in many ways, right, it's this shifting balance of using the lab for a place to verify properties versus a place to discover properties of the molecules, and I think understanding where you need to back away from the models and take your foot off the gas and say, no, this is, I don't see it, and so we're going to measure it, but we're going to maybe we're going to measure this property way earlier in the process, because when I look at my sort of how robust is my series, I know I don't model this, so maybe I'll do a PK study that you would normally do really late, really early, and now I've really decreased the risk. So I think, again, this is where to me, looking at the process holistically changes things, because if I, in a theoretical sense, go off and sell that same tool as a PK tool, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but it's about understanding when and how to apply, and I totally agree.
And to your point, doing it faster, I mean, how hard it is sometimes to tell chemists, okay, this actually is interesting and good, but the PK is really bad, or the bioavailability doesn't really have. Yeah. And it takes a long time from traditional ways to optimize that. It's not like you can go back to your HTS, right? And so anything that you can do to speed that process and make it more accurate as well, that'll be great.
And if just as a follow-on, what do you think the balance should be for that expertise to be internal in the small companies or maybe in the larger companies versus working with companies like Logica, either end-to-end or maybe a la carte on the AI side? Is there a 50-50, or is it everybody kind of needs AI today if they have data, or is it, we can look mostly externally?
I don't think you need everybody needs AI. I think companies, and we have that at PM, should have some bioinformatics expertise. They should have someone that can talk to companies like Valo, that can talk the same language, because let's face it, you guys come with a lot of AI's algorithms to me. I have no idea what to say, right? So I think having that kind of expertise in-house to be able to actually have that interaction is important. But I don't think that we have to obviously bring all the AI, infrastructure in-house. Because that requires so much expertise and so much, it is, even though it's fast and all that, it's still time-consuming to build those. I'm sure you guys took a while, right, to build those capabilities. So I don't think all companies have to have it, but they do have to get clearly that bioinformatics expertise that help you understand data packages, that understand and work with companies such as Valo and Logica, to steer them into what we believe will be the right places to be.
Oh, no, thank you. Yeah, and it in many ways, right, there's the question is still around that interface, right? Much of the Gen 1 AI companies were deploying within existing silos, right? Like, I'll come in, I'll help you with this piece, and I think that was helpful at increasing efficiencies, but there's a lot of value. What you're not asking is, what can I do today with these types of algorithms that I couldn't do yesterday, right? And I think, to me at least, what gets me excited to get out of bed in the morning is that we're starting to ask those questions about, what about all the compounds that made it through our traditional processes and still had some very, very late stage, failure in discovery or maybe and can we model that? What's the data we need to generate in order to be able to model that? And I think to me, that's what's very exciting, that we can, even only a few months really into launching the Logica, can start to ask those kinds of questions. Julie, in your mind, if you look again globally at the types of offerings that are out there and that Charles River has, what gap, what do you think Logica provides that is missing from the market today?
So I think that's actually a pretty straightforward answer to that. I actually don't think there is any other commercially accessible, fully integrated drug discovery and development platform that is end-to-end AI enabled. As you say, there are plenty of micro-solution companies out there, but I don't believe there's anyone else that has the platform that we have when we combine our forces and then make that commercially available to the marketplace, right? And that's a big point, right? So just to what Louisa was saying, you don't need to build this internally when there is an organization like Charles River and Valo bringing their forces together and offering a platform that you can access. Yeah. So I think that's critically important. I just don't think there is an absolute equivalent out there. Plenty of strong companies who've grown up on AI and have built an element of drug discovery around that, absolutely. But I think the scale of Charles River, combined with the depth of, decade and a half, it's really a decade and a half, right? If you go and look back through the history of Valo, sure. Right? Yeah. I just don't think there's anything to compare it to. Yeah. And I don't think we should underestimate the scale of Charles River's data generation capabilities and the history around understanding toxicology and our ability to leverage all of that insight into the early stages of drug discovery, I think is incredibly valuable. So, I like to say we're unique, basically.
I agree.
I agree as well.
So any closing thoughts or remarks? I think we're coming up to time. Louisa?
No, as I mentioned, I think at the beginning, and I totally agree with you guys, which is, especially in the small molecule space, we need better solutions. Because, there was a few years ago, both in immunology and in the IO space, there was really great, interesting molecules that came in. And like we see with the JAKs, a lot of the issues have been about toxicology, have been about selectivity, have been about getting the best molecules. And so I think that it really is a huge space in terms of targets, in terms of potential drugs that can help patients. And so we really needed unique solutions to help address some of the pitfalls that we all know, but it's been hard to solve. And so I'm very excited, not only from obviously a PM point of view and the ability to generate new chemical matter and test in a speed. I'm all about speed, so in a speed, but meaningful way, not cutting corners. But I'm also excited for patients, to be honest, because there's really been a breadth of new molecules across all therapeutic areas, and this is a huge white space that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, thank you. And Julie?
Yeah, so from my perspective, obviously there's been a lot of focus on these new exotic advanced modalities, but I think at Charles River we firmly believe that small molecules are always going to be at least 50% of the industry's collective pipelines. And I think what we would love to be able to say is one day that Logica will be the reason why we've taken just the pure execution risk out of running a small molecule program. We can't do anything about the biology risk. I mean, that's inherent in everything we do. Exactly. But I think if we could, apply a really comprehensive, sort of standardized constant learning process. I think we can take a lot of the execution risk out and deliver candidates that, you know, our large pharma friends expect us to deliver.
Thank you. And frankly, from my perspective, like you said, having spent more than a decade, closer to two, doing this, the frustration has always been the gap and the cycle times and the inability, frankly, to really quickly localize the things that are going to matter in a series, you know, localize the models to predict the things that are going to matter late. And I think, and so, you know, that cycle time, that closed loop, the true closed loop discovery, I think is going to enable a lot of sort of enable the models that are going to make the process more predictable, as you're saying. So no, it's certainly, I think, the most exciting thing that I've been a part of in my 20 years of doing this.
And I would actually just to end on something maybe a little bit controversial. I do think that the way small molecule drug discovery is being done at the moment has become very, very globalized and spread across multiple continents.
Yes.
And I think we've lost sight of the cycle times. We really have. And so I would also say that, you know, Logica is an opportunity to sort of, you know, re-anchor ourselves to the original idea that, you know, your cycle times should be days, not weeks.
No, I totally agree. That was one of the big things when I went from a big pharma, where obviously we did mostly in-house, at least at that time. Now even big pharma is not doing that. It was to a smaller company, and the compound started in America, we'll go to China, then we'll go to India, then we'll go to Canada. And I'm like, by the time it goes around the universe, it would be a long time,
I used to joke that our business model was DHL bound. And I think that's so I would like to thank, you know, Flagship and Julie and Louisa for the time this morning and for your insights. Thank you very much.
Great, thanks, Guido.
Thanks for having us. It's super exciting.
Thank you.